Most people go to Japan and see Tokyo, Kyoto, Osaka. They do the temples, the bullet train, the ramen, and then they go home thinking they've seen it. They haven't even scratched it. Here are 21 secret places in Japan that you've never heard of. Place 21, Ouchi-juku, the Edo-era village, that time forgot, Fukushima Prefecture. In the mountains of southwestern Fukushima, about an hour south of Aizu Wakamatsu, sits a village called Ouchi-juku. From the hilltop observation platform, looking down at rows of thick, thatched rooftops along a dirt road, mountain streams on either side, no power lines anywhere in sight, it looks completely and convincingly like 1640. Ouchi-juku developed as a post town in the early Edo period, a rest stop on the road connecting the Aizu domain with Edo. Feudal lords, tax collectors, and merchants stopped here. The town thrived for 2 centuries. Then the roads changed, railways bypassed the area, and rather than modernize, the residents preserved. In 1981, it was designated an important preservation district for groups of traditional buildings. Today, more than 30 Edo-era thatched roof houses line the street, each operating as a restaurant, shop, or guest house. The local dish is negi soba, buckwheat noodles in a deep bowl with a long, fresh leek placed across the top in place of chopsticks. Functionally awkward, texturally interesting, and entirely specific to this one place. Place 20, the Shirogane Blue Pond, the accident that became an icon, Hokkaido. Near Biei in Hokkaido, there is a pond that looks like a screensaver, the kind you'd dismiss as edited. The water is luminous cobalt blue. Dead larch trees stand rooted in it, pale trunks rising from the surface. Quiet and slightly unreal, none of it was planned. After the 1988 eruption of Mount Tokachi, the Hokkaido government built a concrete dam to protect Biei from volcanic mud flows. Water backed up and formed a reservoir. Mineral-rich water from Shirahige Falls flows into the Biei River upstream, carrying colloidal aluminum hydroxide, particles that scatter shorter wavelengths of light. The result is blue. The dam was built to stop a disaster. The blue pond was what showed up instead. It stayed unknown until 2012, when a photograph of the pond was selected as a default wallpaper for Apple's OS X Mountain Lion, also appearing in iOS 7 and iOS 8. Millions of people stared at it every time they opened a laptop with no idea where it was. The pond now receives approximately 2.3 million visitors per year. In winter, LED lighting illuminates it each evening from late October through late April. Place 19. Naoshima, the fishing island that became a world-class art destination, Kagawa Prefecture. In 1985, Naoshima was an unremarkable island in the Seto Inland Sea. Very few international visitors went there annually. The mayor of Naoshima met with businessman Tetsuhiko Fukutake, who wanted to build a cultural center on a remote island. They agreed Naoshima was the place. In 1989, a campsite opened, and artist Carol Appel installed the island's first permanent art piece. In 1992, architect Tadao Ando completed the Benesse House Museum, simultaneously a contemporary art museum and a hotel, perched on a hill overlooking the sea. In 1994, Yayoi Kusama placed her polka-dotted yellow pumpkin at the end of the pier. The Chichu Art Museum followed in 2004, built almost entirely underground to preserve the view of the Seto Inland Sea, housing 5 of Claude Monet's water lilies, works displayed only under natural light. Kusama's pumpkin was destroyed by a typhoon in 2021 and reinstalled in 2022. The island today has multiple museums, an art house project converting old village structures into art installations, and a public bathhouse. The coexistence of all of it, in a space 3 miles long, is what makes Naoshima unlike anywhere else. Place 18. Okunoshima, the rabbit island with a very dark secret, Hiroshima Prefecture. Okunoshima is a small island in the Seto Inland Sea, accessible by a 15-minute ferry from Tadanumi Port in Hiroshima Prefecture. It is carpeted in friendly, fearless rabbits, hundreds of them. They approach without hesitation and gather at the dock when boats arrive. From 1929 to 1945, Okunoshima was a top-secret Imperial Japanese chemical weapons facility. It produced mustard gas, tear gas, and other poisonous substances deployed against China during World War II. Japan was a signatory to the 1925 Geneva Protocol prohibiting chemical warfare. The factory opened 4 years later. The island was removed from Japanese maps. Workers, some of them women and children, were exposed to toxic gases. After Japan's surrender, Allied forces disposed of stockpiles through burning, ocean dumping, and burial. The Okunoshima Poison Gas Museum opened in 1988 and remains on the island. The rabbits arrived when the island was converted to a park after the war. The test animal theory is considered unlikely. Those rabbits were euthanized when the facility closed. The most credible account is that rabbits were released in 1971. Dogs and cats are prohibited. The population multiplied. The museum sits a few minutes' walk from the bunnies. Place 17, Takachiho Gorge, where the sun goddess hid from the world, Miyazaki Prefecture. The Gokasi River cuts through a gorge in Miyazaki Prefecture formed by lava from Mount Aso roughly 120,000 years ago. The volcanic rock cooled into hexagonal basalt columns. The river eroded through them over millennia, creating cliffs over 80 meters deep with emerald green water below. The Kojiki, compiled in 712 CE, places one of Shinto's central myths here. Amaterasu, enraged by her brother Susanoo, retreated into a cave called Amano Iwato. Without the sun, crops failed and chaos spread. 8 million deities gathered to lure her out. The goddess Ame no Uzume danced. The gods laughed. Amaterasu opened the cave to see what was happening, and light returned. The Amano Iwato Shrine, about 10 kilometers from the gorge, leads visitors to a viewing platform looking directly at the cave, which remains permanently closed. At the gorge, rowboats can be rented to paddle beneath the 17-meter Manai Falls. Reservations are mandatory. During peak seasons, the day's entire allocation sells out within minutes of booking opening. A nightly Kagura dance at Takachiho Shrine reenacts the mythology. The full repertoire runs 33 dances and goes on all night. Place 16, Yanaka, the neighborhood that the earthquakes and bombs mostly missed, Tokyo. Tokyo was largely destroyed by the Great Kanto earthquake of 1923 and then again by Allied firebombing in 1945. The city that emerged was rebuilt mostly in concrete and glass. Old Tokyo, wooden merchant districts, narrow lanes, neighborhood temples, exists in fragments. Yanaka is one of the largest surviving ones. Located in the Taido ward, Yanaka's low-rise wooden buildings and its old-fashioned shopping street, Yanaka Ginza, survived both disasters largely intact. The result is a neighborhood that looks and functions more like Showa-era Japan than the Tokyo of Shinjuku or Shibuya. The streets are narrow. Cats roam freely. Small temples are tucked into residential blocks. Local shops sell pickles, incense, dried goods, and handmade crafts. Yanaka Ginza has around 60 stalls and shops. At the far end, a flight of steps called Yuyake Danden, Sunset Stairs, leads down to a view of surrounding rooftops that, in the right light and season, catches the sunset at an angle that has made it one of the more photographed corners of old Tokyo. There is no single attraction in Yanaka. That is the point. It is a neighborhood, not a destination. Place 15, Koyasan town itself, Wakayama Prefecture. Most people who go to Koyasan go to Okunoin Cemetery and leave. The cemetery is enormous and worth every hour, but the town surrounding it is also worth lingering in, and most visitors pass through it simply as transit. Koyasan is a high valley between 8 mountain peaks in Wakayama Prefecture, settled by the monk Kukai in 816 CE. Over 12 centuries, the complex grew to include more than 100 temples, many of which now operate as shukubo, temple lodging, where visitors can sleep, eat traditional Buddhist vegetarian cuisine, and attend early morning prayer services. Staying overnight at a shukubo is one of the more genuinely unusual experiences available in Japan. The buildings are centuries old. Meals are served in quiet, on low lacquered tables. Morning prayers begin before sunrise. The sound of chanting in the dark, in a wooden temple on top of a mountain, is not something easily replaced by a hotel in Osaka. The Kongabuji Temple, the head temple of the Shingon school of Buddhism, has a dry rock garden called Banryū-tei, reportedly the largest in Japan, made of 140 large stones arranged to represent two dragons emerging from white gravel. It was created in 1984. Place 14, Teshima, the island, where a museum holds nothing but water and light, Kagawa Prefecture. Teshima is a small island in the Seto Inland Sea neighboring Naoshima. Where Naoshima has multiple museums and a busy art scene, Teshima has one building that has become one of the most discussed architectural spaces in contemporary Japan. The Teshima Art Museum opened in 2010, designed by architect Ryue Nishizawa and artist Rei Naito. The structure is a single shell of concrete, no straight lines, no columns, no interior supports, shaped like a water droplet spread flat across the ground. It is 40 meters at its widest and 4.5 meters at its highest. Natural light filters through, creating a diffuse, shifting glow inside. Visitors enter through two oval openings. No art on walls, no artwork in cases. From small holes in the floor, droplets of water appear, grow, and slide across the surface in slow, unpredictable paths, gathering, separating, merging. The piece is titled Matrix. The sound is a single room open to wind and light. Visitors remove their shoes. People sit in the space for extended periods. There is nothing else to do, and that is the design. Place 13, Yunotsu, the fishing town, with an onsen that's been running since the 8th century, Shimane Prefecture. On the Japan sea coast of Shimane Prefecture, the small port town of Yunotsu sits at the end of a narrow valley, hidden from the main road. Most Japan travel guides don't reach it. Yunotsu's hot springs appear in the Izumo Fudoki, compiled in 733 CE, making them among the oldest documented hot spring sites in Japan. The water is a sodium-calcium sulfate spring recognized in 2009 as a nationally designated natural spa, a status given to only a handful of springs in the country. The town is part of the Iwami Ginzan UNESCO World Heritage Site, the historic silver mine area whose ores circulated through East Asia and into Europe during the 16th and 17th centuries. The buildings along Yunotsu's main street are old wooden merchant houses operating as bathhouses, or ryokan. Two public baths sit at the center, Motonyu and Yakushi-yu. The water is mineral-heavy, skin-coating, and has flowed from the same source for over 12 centuries. The baths are not glamorous. Place 12, Yanagawa, the city with canals instead of streets, Fukuoka Prefecture. In Fukuoka Prefecture, about an hour by train from Fukuoka City, Yanagawa is a small city built around a network of irrigation canals constructed in the 16th century. Originally designed for flood control and agriculture, the canals still run through the city today, lined with willow trees. The main way to see them is by flat-bottomed punt. A boatman pulls the vessel slowly through the narrow waterways while passengers sit low, watching the city pass at close range. Stone walls, low bridges, overhanging trees, occasional herons. The boats wind through residential areas and commercial districts, past temples and old merchant houses. The full circuit takes about 70 minutes and covers a surprising amount of the city. Yanagawa was the birthplace of the poet Hakushu Kitahara, 1885 to 1942, whose influence on modern Japanese poetry and children's songs was considerable. His childhood home still stands along the canals and operates as a museum. The city has an eel-focused food culture. Eel rice served in a local style called sikro is the signature dish, and holds a festival every November called Ohana, in which the punts are decorated with chrysanthemums. Place 11, Matsumoto, the Black Castle and the Frog Street, Nagano Prefecture. Most visitors to Japan see Himeji Castle, white, gleaming, famous. Matsumoto Castle in Nagano Prefecture is the opposite. Black lacquered walls, dark wood, 6 stories, heavy. Completed in the late 16th century, it is one of Japan's oldest surviving original castles. The keep itself is the original structure, not a post-war concrete reconstruction. On clear days, snow-capped peaks of the Japanese Alps frame it on 3 sides. Directly across the Mitoba River from the castle grounds is Nawate-dori, a shopping street known locally as Frog Street. It earned the name because of the shrine at its far end, Yohashira Shrine, where a frog deity is enshrined, and the frog motifs throughout. on signs, carved into posts, painted on walls, and culminating in a large stone frog statue near the shrine. The street is lined with old-fashioned shops selling crafts, snacks, and antiques. It takes about 15 minutes to walk end to end. Exactly the kind of small, specific, inexplicably Japanese thing that sticks in memory. Matsumoto also has the Matsumoto City Museum of Art, with a permanent collection dedicated to Yayoi Kusama, the same Kusama whose pumpkin sits on Naoshima. Place 10. Kanazawa's Higashi-chaya District, the geisha quarter that still works, Ishikawa Prefecture. Kanazawa, on the Japan's sea coast of Honshu, is often described as the Kyoto that didn't get bombed. Like Kyoto, it survived World War II largely intact. Unlike Kyoto, it receives a fraction of the international visitors, which means its historic districts are navigable without the crowds. The Higashi-chaya District, the Eastern Geisha Quarter, was established in 1820 by the Kaga domain government. The wooden ochaya, tea houses, along the main street have been operating in some form since then. Some are now museums or shops. Several remain active tea houses. Gold leaf production is one of Kanazawa's surviving traditional industries. The city produces more than 99% of Japan's gold leaf, and shops here sell gold leaf products including, inevitably, gold leaf ice cream, which tastes exactly like regular ice cream, but photographs well and costs considerably more. The 21st Century Museum of Contemporary Art is also in Kanazawa, a circular building with no designated front entrance, designed by architects Sana, with a swimming pool installation that creates the illusion of people standing underwater through architectural engineering that takes a moment to process and then can't be unseen. Place 9. Sandankyo Gorge. The gorge, almost nobody outside Hiroshima Prefecture knows about Hiroshima Prefecture. About 40 kilometers north of Hiroshima City, following the Oda River upstream into the Chugoku Mountains, the gorge at Sandankyo stretches for roughly 16 kilometers through old-growth forest. The name means three-stage gorge, referring to a series of waterfalls, Makeri Falls, Ryuman Falls, and the Upper Falls that step down through the valley. The walking trail follows the river on wooden suspension bridges, stone paths, and narrow ledges cut into the cliff face. Sandankyo was designated a National Scenic Area in 1923. During autumn, the maples turn red, orange, and yellow, with a consistency that draws photographers from across Japan. Outside of autumn, it's almost empty. What makes Sandankyo worth knowing about isn't any single dramatic feature. It's the length of it and the way the gorge changes character as you move through. Some sections are wide and calm, others are narrow enough that the walls block out the sky and the sound bounces back from both sides. The most photographed point is Sarutobi, a narrow rock passage where the river squeezes through a gap of roughly 2 meters. Very few visitors from outside Japan find their way here. The trains stop at Sandankyo Station, and a local bus covers the rest of the distance. Place 8. Iya Valley, the place people chose so they could disappear, Tokushima Prefecture. Deep in the mountains of Shikoku, the Iya Valley sits at the bottom of river gorges that drop several hundred meters from the surrounding plateau. The road into the valley is narrow, winding, and in places barely wide enough for a single car. For most of its history, that was the point. The valley is associated with survivors of the Taira clan, defeated by the Minamoto at the Battle of Dan no Ura in 1185. Local tradition holds that Taira remnants fled into the mountains of Shikoku because the terrain made pursuit nearly impossible. The valley's isolation is a historical fact regardless, and the people who settled here built a culture around it. The most visible remnant are the Kazurabashi, vine bridges. 3 survive, each constructed from braided wisteria vines strung across the river gorges. The most accessible, Iya Kazurabashi, spans about 45 meters. The vines are replaced every 3 years. The bridge sways. The gaps are wide enough to see the river below clearly. The crossing costs 550 yen. Nagaro Doll Village, the scarecrow village covered in the previous video on this channel, is also in the Iya Valley, which tells you something about the valley's ongoing personality. Place 7. Yufuin, the hot spring town that stayed small on purpose, Oita Prefecture. Beppu in Oita Prefecture is the famous one. Large, commercial, calibrated for scale. Yufuin, about 30 minutes away by bus, made a different decision. In the 1970s, Yufuin's town leaders traveled to Germany and Austria to study how small spa towns maintained their character while welcoming visitors. They returned and implemented zoning restrictions on large hotel development, placed limits on building heights, and positioned the town deliberately against the mass tourism model Beppu had adopted. The result, decades later, is a town of 32,000 that handles significant visitor numbers without having been overwhelmed. The approach from Yufuin Station runs along Kinrin Lake, named for the golden glittering of its fish in the afternoon light, and through a low-rise street of galleries, craft shops, and small cafes. The twin peaks of Mount Yufu are visible from almost everywhere. The morning mist that rises off Kinrin Lake in autumn and winter, when cold air meets the warm spring water that feeds the lake, is one of those things that attracts photographers at a specific time of year. By 8 a.m., it is usually burned off. Place 6. Kotohiragu, the shrine at the top of 1,368 steps, Kagawa Prefecture. On Shikoku in Kagawa Prefecture, the Kotohiragu Shrine, popularly called Konpira-san, sits at the top of 1,368 stone steps. The first 785 reach the main shrine. The remaining 583 continue to the inner shrine at the summit. The path is lined with stone lanterns, rest stops, and vendors selling candy and walking sticks. Konpira-san is dedicated to a deity of seafarers and sailors. For centuries, people who couldn't make the pilgrimage sent their dogs to do it for them. The dog wore a small bag of coins around its neck and traveled under the care of strangers who passed it along, person to person, until it reached the shrine and was returned home. These were called Konpira Meri no Inu, and they reportedly received considerable hospitality along the route. From the main shrine at 785 steps, the view across the Sanuki Plain and the Seto Inland Sea is wide and unobstructed. Those who continue to Okusha at the top find a clearing in the trees, a modest building, and a distinct sense of having earned the altitude. Place 5. Shirakawa-go, the UNESCO village under 6 feet of snow, Gifu Prefecture. In the Shogawa River Valley between Gifu and Toyama prefectures, the village of Shirakawa-go has been populated since at least the 12th century. The farmhouses are built in Gassho-zukuri style, meaning hands in prayer, with steep thatched roofs, pitched at angles of up to 60 degrees. The pitch is necessary because the valley receives some of Japan's heaviest snowfall. Without it, the weight would collapse the roof. Shirakawa-go was designated a UNESCO World Heritage Site in 1995. The largest farmhouse, Wada House, belonged to a family that controlled the saltpeter trade. Its interior shows 3 full floors of living space beneath the towering roof structure, which was also used for silkworm cultivation. In late January and February, the village runs illuminated evenings where farmhouses are lit from below, against the snow. Access during these events requires advance reservation. The village is still inhabited, residents live in the farmhouses, manage the tourism, and some structures operate as guest houses. Place 4. Tottori, the sand dunes that are somehow also in Japan, Tottori Prefecture. Japan does not, in most people's mental geography, have deserts. The Tottori sand dunes are technically coastal dunes, formed by sand from the Sendai River accumulating along the Japan sea coast over thousands of years. They stretch roughly 16 kilometers and reach heights of up to 90 meters. They are the largest sand dunes in Japan and look thoroughly out of place in a country of rice paddies and cedar forests. Camels are available for hire. This is not a joke. Adjacent is the Sand Museum in Tottori City, where sculptors from around the world build large-scale works every year, using only sand and water. Each year features a different country as its theme. The sculptures are climate-controlled indoors and last the full season before being demolished and rebuilt. Tottori City is Japan's least populated prefectural capital, with under 200,000 residents. The result is that the dunes, which would be overrun with vendors and development almost anywhere else in Japan, remain relatively uncluttered. Place 3. Arita, the town that taught Europe how to make porcelain, Saga Prefecture. In 1616, a Korean potter named Yi Sam-pyong, brought to Japan following the invasions of Korea in the 1590s, discovered porcelain-quality kaolin clay deposits near a town called Arita in Saga Prefecture. This was the first time high-quality porcelain had been produced in Japan, and it changed the global ceramics trade. Within decades, Arita porcelain, sold through the Dutch East India Company from the nearby port of Imari, was shipping to Europe in large quantities. European royal houses collected it. Meissen in Germany and Delft in the Netherlands developed their own ceramic techniques, specifically trying to reverse engineer what Japanese kilns were producing. The style that developed here, with rich red, blue, and gold overglaze decoration, is called Imari ware internationally and Kakiyamon or Naoshima ware domestically. Arita today still has around 100 active kilns and hosts the Arita Pottery Fair every late April and early May, an event that has run annually for over 300 years. Yi Sampyeong is buried in Arita. The Sueyama shrine there has a torii gate made of porcelain, and he is remembered as the founding figure of the local ceramics industry, a fact that carries particular weight given how he arrived. Place 2. Cape Toy, the wild horses at the end of Kyushu, Miyazaki Prefecture. At the southern tip of the Miyazaki coast, Cape Toy juts into the Pacific. The landscape is open grassland on cliff tops, views straight out to sea, wind with nothing to break it. No major attractions, no UNESCO designations, no crowds. What there are is horses. The Misaki horse is a semi-wild breed that has lived on Cape Toy since at least the late 17th century, when the Akizuki clan managed them as a herd. They are small, sturdy animals, about 130 centimeters at the shoulder. Recognized as a Japanese natural monument, around 100 currently live on the Cape, moving freely across the grasslands and along the cliff tops. Most roam on their own terms, and visitors on the headland footpaths frequently encounter them at close range. The horses are generally indifferent to people, large animals entirely at ease, going about their business at the edge of a cliff above the Pacific. It is the kind of encounter that's hard to engineer and harder to forget. Cape Toy is accessible by bus from Miyazaki City, 3 hours from Kagoshima. Place 1. Horaiji Temple, the mountain shrine, with 1,425 steps and nowhere near enough visitors. Aichi Prefecture. In the mountains of eastern Aichi Prefecture, the Horaiji Temple sits on the side of Mount Kengamine, accessed by a stone staircase of 1,425 steps that climbs through old-growth cedar forest. The temple was founded in 703 CE. The cedar trees lining the staircase are 400 years old in some cases, and the canopy closes overhead for much of the ascent, meaning you climb in a tunnel of green light. Horaiji is not on most Japan travel itineraries. It receives a fraction of the visitors that Kotohiragu receives, despite having more steps and, in certain lights, a more striking approach. The temple is dedicated to Yakushi Nyorai, a Buddha associated with healing, and the complex includes several sub-temples across the mountainside. The summit area is home to a population of wild Japanese macaques, the same species that appears in photographs from Jigokudani in Nagano, which move through the temple grounds freely. The interaction between the monkeys, the ancient stonework, the cedar forest, and the occasional pilgrim produces the kind of moment that's hard to plan for and harder to forget. The climb takes 45 minutes to an hour one way. Very few people at the bottom are foreign tourists. 21 places, a pond that exists because of a volcano, a village cut off from modernity that decided to stay that way, an island that made nerve gas and now has hundreds of rabbits, a fishing island that became a world art destination because a businessman wanted to build a campsite. Japan keeps producing these places, and most of them never make the travel brochures. If you've been to any of them, or if there's a place this list missed, say so in the comments. Subscribe if you want more. There's no shortage of Japan left to find.